back to my channel. Today we are going to be making some crochet succulents. Super fun and easy, nice little flower-shaped succulent. This crochet pattern is going to be adjustable, so we can do it in different sizes just by manipulating the pattern a little bit, and you can make this any size you want. You don't have to follow my pattern for sizing. I have my smallest one and my largest one. I also made a medium-sized one, so we have 3 different sizes. This is only going to use basic stitches, so we're just going to use single crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, and you get this fun, cute little succulent. And I have a project using both these and the crochet roses that were on my channel a couple of weeks ago. I'm working on putting together a project using both the succulents and the roses, and I did want to point out that the rose, if you remember the crochet rose that was on my channel, I'll have the link in the description box below for that if you missed it. The rose pattern is going to be very similar to the succulent pattern. Really the only difference here is the rose has rounded petals and the succulent has spiky petals. And I will go over with you how to do the adjustment to basically the rose pattern to make the succulent and make those petals pointy. But it's very, very simple, especially if you did try out the rose pattern. The succulent is going to be super easy, very similar process. And we're going to be putting them both together for a fun project coming up.
So going ahead and getting started here, I'm just using some worsted weight green yarn. I believe this is Red Heart Soft in Guacamole. And then I also have an H or 5mm hook. You can follow this pattern with other weights of yarn and their corresponding hook size, so just keep that in mind. I'm starting with a slip knot, and then I'm starting my foundation chain. You do want a foundation chain of 10 plus 1, so you may be able to do this pattern with other odd numbers of foundation chain stitches, but multiples of 10 plus 1 seem to work best for me. So just like with the crochet rose pattern that we did a bit earlier on my channel, and you can find that link in the description box below, we're going to be starting this off the same way, just the petals are shaped a little bit differently. So if you've done the rose pattern, you may be able to skip ahead a couple of steps in this video if you'd like, or just go ahead and follow along with me. So I'm starting off here with a foundation chain of 51 stitches, so that's my multiple of 10 5 times 50 plus 1 extra stitch. So go ahead and work up 51. Again, you can do any multiple of 10 plus 1. My smallest succulent that I showed in the beginning of this video was 21 stitches, and then my medium-sized one was 41 stitches. So just to give you an idea of sizing, here are my 51 foundation chains. This is going to make a rather large succulent. Now in the second chain from our hook, 1 and 2, we're going to go ahead and single crochet. Then we're going to chain up 2, 1, and 2. We're going to skip 1 stitch, skip 1, and single crochet in the next. And we're just going to repeat that all the way down. So single crochet, chain up 2, 1, untangle my yarn, and 2, skip 1 stitch, and single crochet in the next. Go ahead and finish this all the way down, single crochet, chain 1 and 2, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1 and 2. As you repeat this, your fabric will start to kind of curl up on you, and that's completely fine. That's what is expected to happen. So go ahead and finish this all the way down. Once you finish your entire row, you can see things starting to kind of curl up. Your foundation chain is a lot stiffer, and that's a good thing. So we've reached the end of the row. We're going to chain up 2 and turn our work to work back the other way from right to left as always. So once we've turned our work, we're going to go ahead and work in this chain space, not into the stitch, but the chain space, and work a double crochet and another double crochet in the exact same space. We're going to chain up 2. And we're going to work 2 more double crochets into the exact same chain space. So we're working our first petal here, our first pointed petal, and you may notice that the construction of this is a little bit different than the crochet rose pattern that is also on my blog. But we are going to go ahead and chain 1 after our next 2 double crochets, and we're going to slip stitch into the exact same place, chain 1 and slip stitch that we've worked our petal into, and that completes our first petal. We can see here that's a little pointed and looking very much like a succulent petal. Now we're going to identify the next chain 2 space and slip stitch into that. So slip stitch, and we're going to chain up 1, and we're going to work 2 double crochets in the next chain space. There is 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2 to form that point on the petal, double crochet, and double crochet. So each petal is made up of 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 1 and then slip stitch back down into the petal space. Slip stitch in the next chain space, chain up 1, and we can see how our first couple of petals here are looking. Nice and pointed, but still round as a succulent petal will be. We're going to keep repeating this process with the double crochets about a third of the way down our work, so down the strip that we're working on. So here you can see we're still working with double crochets, creating those petals. And this is not an exact science. Just like with the rose video, you can kind of eyeball this. It depends on what multiple of 10 you're working with, how many petals are going to be made up of double crochet before we start reducing. But just make sure that you're about a third of the way down your work. So you've worked about a third of the chain spaces. Now at this point we've worked about a third of the way down, and now I'm just counting my chain spaces to make sure that I'm about a third of the way, maybe a little more. And now I'm going to start working my petals in the same method I have been, but instead of double crochets I'll be working half double crochets. So as you can see here, now I'm doing 2 half double crochets with a chain 2 space, and then 2 more half double crochets all in the same spot. And my last half double crochet, still going to chain 1 and slip stitch down into the same space, slip stitch in the next, and chain 1 again. So you can see here how this petal is a lot smaller than the double crochet petals using these half double crochet stitches. So go ahead and work another third of the way down. We want to get to where we just have a couple of petals left to work, and then we're going to change up what we're doing once again. So go ahead and work until you have just a couple of chain spaces left. So here we have most of our petals worked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 petals done. And then we just have a few chain spaces left. So now what we're going to do is we're going to keep working our petals, but we're going to work single crochets instead of double or half double crochets. So same process, 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, and this is just going to make our petals smaller because right here at the end we're working the petals that are going to be right at the center of the succulent, and we want those just a tad smaller than the outside petals. So going ahead and working with the same process, we're slip stitching in the next chain space, chaining up 1. We can see that that's a really small petal there compared to the beginning. And then in our last chain space, again, 2 single crochets, chain 2, 1 and 2, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to still chain up 1 and slip stitch down into the petal center. And then now our succulent is technically done. We just need to snip our yarn, leave a really long tail for sewing this up together. Go ahead and finish off. So just yarn over and pull through, tighten down that knot. And our crocheting is done. Now we just have to sew this baby up. So grab that single crochet that you just finished. Here's how everything should be looking. It should curl up on itself. The single crochet petal that you just finished, that's all the way here at the end of our last row, right here. We're going to grab that and start there. And we're going to just start turning and twisting and curling this up on itself. Tuck that tail out of the way for now. And we're just going to kind of wrap this around. We want to make sure that the bottom of the succulent remains flat. We don't want a cone-like shape to our petals. We want the bottom to stay flat and the petals to just kind of wrap around each other. So go slowly here. Make sure things are positioned how you want. We can adjust before we sew things down. But go ahead and just be careful go slowly, and get things exactly how you want them. We can really see here now how this is looking just like a real live succulent and a lot less like a strip of crochet stitches that don't look like much of anything. So here's our succulent. We can see kind of what the shape is going to be looking like. Go ahead and kind of finalize where you want things to be. Do your last kind of tweaking and moving of petals and adjusting the shape and how tight or loose you've wrapped it. We can see here how similar it is to the rose, just with the rounded edges versus the pointy edges, and our method of twisting things up and wrapping it on itself is the exact same way that we've done the rose. So now we need to take our tapestry needle or yarn needle, and we're going to thread that extra long tail that we left from the very last stitch. So here we can see this kind of spiral from what was our foundation chain stitches, forming if our succulent is nice and flat and not wrapped up like a cone shape. I've flipped it over because we're going to be stitching this up from the bottom, but make sure to hold things in place just as you've left them when you positioned it looking at the top. Make sure that you're not handling it too roughly and you're not knocking things out of place. Now once we've threaded our tapestry needle, we need to pick things up very carefully and go ahead and go in the center and out through the edge. And then we're just going to come out and in through the center and out through the edges. As you can see here, I'm picking up those rounds of stitches, those foundation chain stitches, as I'm going out and in from the center of the succulent, and just work all the way around, coming out and in through the center and securing things in place. If you need to add any extra stitches or stitch more than I have here to make things really permanent, that's totally fine. Stitch to your heart's content. So after I've come out and in all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and weave that tail, or leave the tail if you want to use it to sew your succulent onto another project. And now as we flip it over, you can see what this succulent will look like from the top. It's now nice and sturdy and sewn together and ready to adorn all your home decor projects. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching.